Hey, free timers. What if the best way to manage your money each month was to stop budgeting altogether? In this episode, we're walking through the no budget budget, a system that helps you spend in line with your values, not your spreadsheets. We'll show you how it works, why it actually frees you up, and what happened when we tried it ourselves. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Time Freedom Podcast, where you can learn how to rethink your work and your money to create a life you love right now. Join us for insights to help you find meaningful freedom so you can choose how and when and with whom you work for as long as you want. Here are your hosts, me, Brian Harriott, and Kirby Dennison. Welcome back to the Time Freedom Podcast. I'm Brian here with Kirby, and we are going to introduce episode number 13, which is the no budget budget, which is a very popular topic for a lot of people, especially the 80 some early readers of my book. They really enjoyed this. And I think they enjoy it because people don't like to budget. And so I'm kind of in a weird way giving you permission not to. But before we get into that, let me introduce my wonderful co-host, Kirby Dennison. She is the owner of Kirby & Co. And she is a entrepreneurial coach, and she provides fractional COO services and does a bunch of other wonderful things from her home base in Colorado.
Yes,
How is it in Colorado? How is it in Colorado these days, weather-wise?
Ugh.
Freezing?
Well, it's all over the place. It's bipolar. So in Yuma, it was 80 degrees. At my mother-in-law's, it was snowing. So actually, when I came home from California, it was like 2 inches of snow, and I was
Oh my gosh.
not okay with that.
Wow.
I am ready for cooler weather. However, I do not like snow. I don't like it at all. So
Neither do I. I grew up in Wisconsin, and we moved to California, and we told ourselves we would never take for granted these temperate winters. And I always think the first winter we were here, it was January 2nd, and my wife and I were outside playing tennis. And we're like, we will always remember this. Every January 2nd, for some reason, I remember that. We go back to Wisconsin for winter about every 5 or 6 years. And then we're like, no, never again. And then 5 or 6 years we come back, and then we're like, never again.
You forget about it, I think, a little bit. I'm coming back to California in November, and our Airbnb has a pool, and I was like, there's no way we're going to be in the pool. And everyone was like, you're in California in November. It's still going to be probably 70 degrees. I'm worried about getting there in a blizzard. And I'm like, so I do not like winter at all. And before we forget, I'm here with Brian, our host of and author of Time Freedom, speaker, and I don't know, you're doing so many things right now, and it's super exciting. The biggest thing, I think, as we mentioned in the last episode, is join our insiders group at timefreedom.life. And Brian is sharing so many behind the scene things from his author perspective. He's sharing the book chapter by chapter every week. And I just have this feeling, or knowing, I guess more so, of we're on the brink of really ramping up our marketing and stuff. And I know it's going to explode from here. And I just am so excited. I can't even verbalize how excited I am.
Me too. Yeah, we met with Page 2 Simplified. That's our publisher this week, and we're talking about just all the cool stuff that we've started and that we're going to continue to do. It's very exciting. It's very, very exciting. So what have you been up to lately, Kirby?
Well, as I've shared before, I've been through some NLP trainings. I'm just about finished. The biggest thing that we did is full breakthrough. And so you go through, it's really intense. They take anywhere from 8 to 12 hours on average. Basically, we put in all of our learnings that we've done. And it was so interesting to see a before and after picture. Literally in 7 days going through this, primarily from the breakthrough of when you shed limiting beliefs and when you shed all the negative energy and stuff like that you carry in your day-to-day, even if you don't really think about it, it is amazing to see the transformation. So I will post it somewhere. Go find me on Instagram or something. I'm going to post it this week.
That is so awesome.
My face was more round, I feel like. And maybe it's just my view of myself, but It was crazy.
That's so cool. So you're off making yourself a better person, and I'm sitting at home watching shows on Netflix. I'm watching a new show, and I want to introduce it, but to give you some background, I grew up with a parent, my mother, who was fascinated by crime and like
Ooh,
serial killers, that whole thing.
I
And
could get behind
living
that.
in Wisconsin, we had Jeffrey Dahmer and we had them all. We even had a local woman that lived in our hometown that we took our dog to be kenneled. Our dog was very excited to get back from that weekend that we left him there, but the lady was murdered. She was murdered by her daughter and her son-in-law, and we watched the trial on television. It was, I'm a little embarrassed by it, but I kind of understand it in the same way. But anyway, the new show is on Netflix and it's in its third season, but it's called Monster. Have you heard of
Ooh,
this one?
no, but now
It's
I'm
Monster.
intrigued.
So this third season is called Monster, the Ed Gein story. And people don't know who Ed Gein is unless you're from Wisconsin, because when we would drive to my grandparents' cabin, which I may have mentioned on the podcast before when we were kids, when we would go up to Kylie Toma, that was the name of the cabin. Just real quickly, my grandparents' kids were named Kim, Lynn, Todd, and Mary. And if you take the first two letters of those, you get Kylie Toma. That was the name of the cabin. We would have to go through a city called Plainfield, Wisconsin. And Plainfield was where in the 90s and 50s, this guy named Ed Gein lived. And I'm learning from this show, like I knew the stories, and it's a little
Mhm.
graphic to talk about here, but this guy was the quote unquote inspiration for all of these horror films, like
Mm.
Friday the 13th and Cape Fear and what's the one with Silence of the Lambs and any sort of crazy thing like Babysitter in the Closet, Man Walking in a Flannel Shirt Outside, other crazy, awful things to do with dead bodies. This guy did it. He was like the original person who did all this stuff. And so anyway, when I learned, of course, my mom, my aunts and uncles, they're all watching the show. And I bet it's just lighting up on Netflix in Wisconsin and around Plainfield. But she said that when they would go to the cabin, her parents, my grandparents would be like, that's where Ed Gein lived. And that's why that passed down to me. So like now I go, and when we were kids, my sister and I were kids, we would also get pointed that out as well. And now there's a television show so everyone can enjoy it. But actually, if you have a bad stomach or anything like that, I really recommend you not watch it. My wife is not watching it. My dad is not watching it. So I'm stuck watching it. But it's kind of
Do you and
gross,
your
but
mom
it's
just talk
fascinating.
about it every week when the new episode lands?
Well, actually, my dad is visiting, and he's like, "So what? Tell me more about it." He just didn't want to watch it; he just wanted to know the
Mm.
storyline. But and actually, it's crazy. Like all the actors and actresses in the show have the perfect Wisconsin accent. Like they really did it. It's a very high quality show. They say boat and out and all those words. Yeah. Wait, I'm sorry. We went really deep on that and I apologize for that. But we're going to talk about the no budget today. And this is an important topic, I think, because I'm in the financial independence circles and people focused on, saving and investing so that you can, live more freely and all this sort of thing. And a lot of the early thinking in this area was all about like restrict your spending so much, like reuse, like there's examples like never buy, don't go out for coffee because you can save $1,000 a year. The latte effect is a thing that's,
Mhm.
there's, reuse your aluminum foil, wash off and reuse your dental floss, like all these crazy ideas. It's kind of
That's
gross, but
disgusting.
all these disgusting ideas for how you can save so much money and then you can like free yourself forever. But that I'm happy to say that thinking has evolved. And I think the book, if I could put a single like pitch in there, but also like pinpoint the changes, there was a book called Die with Zero, where a guy
Mhm.
writes the book about like spend money when you can. And like people die with all this money and like they haven't been able to enjoy life and not just splurge, but like spend it on your family or take trips, like use your money. And that's done a really good job. And these communities now are starting to accept this concept of freer spending. And I'll call it
Mhm.
values-based spending. So like spend money on something that is highly valuable to you and it's okay. And
Mhm.
that's the basis behind the no budget, which we'll get into. But I just wanted to kind of put that out there first to kind of set some context, which I think has evolved. You have your own experience with
Mhm.
budgets and tracking and all that sort of stuff too, I know, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was so some people are familiar with the Dave Ramsey stuff, and I mean, and it was great, for a time and place, and it was just so restrictive. with the envelopes. And it got to be so complicated. He has made it a little more simple from a sense of he has an app now and you can connect your accounts and go in and say what's in each envelope and not physically have envelopes. However, if you're already not good with money, I would say do the envelopes. If
Yeah.
you have to be restrictive. When you first shared the no budget budget with me, it was just so relieving. And you mentioned it already as a value-based spending and not feeling guilty about it. And because so many times we do feel guilty about stupid stuff. It's just was freeing when you shared that with me. And then as we went through the early readers, hearing their perspective of the no budget budget. And so I'm excited to get further down into it.
I was wondering if, like, it's been some time since you read it, so you're kind of sitting with it, and I think about it all the time. I would be curious if you were to just describe what the no budget budget is in just a little short, a few statements or something like that. How would you describe it? Because it might actually help people that are just learning about it initially, and then we can kind of dissect it further.
Yeah. So the no budget budget for me and how I have implemented it is it's still somewhat of a budget. It was going through and making sure, like seeing where you're truly spending your money and then being able to go in and say, no, I don't need to spend $1,000 a year on coffee. And, however, you have to spend $1,000 on health insurance or whatever, there are things that you have to spend money on that you can't get away from. And where can you either cut back on expenses and put them towards savings, your investments, doing the things and living your life now rather than just going through your day to day and saying, I just have no money for that. But when you really break it down, you can say, I was not spending rationally on something.
Yeah, and I think what you've said encapsulates the two ideas I think of when I think of the no budget budget, which is you still need to know what you're spending your money on. And not always, like you don't need to do it to the penny every single day, every single week, every single month. But at a point in time, look back over a couple of years and figure out what you were spending money on. Step one. We're not talking about like trying to meet budgets in the future. It's just a backwards look. And then you want to filter that through what you value. And the perfect example, I don't remember where I heard this the first time, but I find it really helpful is, let's say you spend, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an obscene number, $15,000 on restaurants and drinks, going out for restaurants and drinks. What is the traditional advice? Cut that back, right? Stop spending that, because you can save a lot of money by eating at home. Now, what if you're 27, you just moved to New York City, you have no friends, and you're trying to meet people? You're supposed to just sit home and, cook food to yourself. No, like it's extremely valuable to you to spend money on food and drinks because it's going to make your life that much better. And so in that case, that person, yes, absolutely. Now the next person, maybe you are overspending on your restaurants and stuff like that. But it's so different for each person and what's important and what's necessary for each person at a point in time. That's why I just found that fascinating when I first heard that the first time.
And that goes right back to the point in the last episode that we talked about is like spend and step with your life stage now. And I think that for us too, having small kids and being in that phase, it's, you only have so many summers with them. And we also talked about this a little bit in the last episode is, maybe you don't take a big trip, but you take those little weekend trips or a day trip. And those memories add up faster than one big trip. And you're still saving money per se, because you're, doing a smaller trip and you are still living your life now rather than, and I think that I think it's even in your subtitle. Your subtitle is so hard for me to remember, but like creating the life you want now. Like
Yes.
That is the whole point of it. And that's where I love the no budget side of it. It's
And
for
then
the
I think-
value.
And then there's the practicality part, like, okay, so I want to spend in line with my values, but how exactly do you do that? And we can break down like the steps, and there's not 100 steps, there's like 5 steps. And the best way that I can use to describe this is an observation that one of the early readers said, which is like, oh, basically you're Marie Kondoing your expenses. And I'm like, Marie Kondoing your expenses. What does that mean? And so I looked it up. It's called the KonMari method. It's a play on Marie Kondo's name. And here are the steps, and it's crazy. And tell me if you remember doing this. Did you ever do Marie Kondo stuff at all?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so did we.
A lot of stuff
What
from the house.
which one do you like? Do you remember any of the techniques like on how to display your clothes and stuff? Do you remember that kind of stuff?
I
That's what
don't
I
remember
remember.
that. I just remember like every time I did a load of laundry, I was like,
Gone. What I remember was you're supposed to roll your clothes and set them on end so that you can see all of the different clothes that you have. And then if you see them, you'll wear them. And of course, you only need like 1/5 of the clothes because you never wear anything. But anyway, so here are the first steps. And then this actually translates directly to the no budget budget. One is collect all your belongings, right? This is the step one of the KonMari method. And in the no budget budget, it's pull your spending records. Okay. So you're Marie Kondoizing your expenses. So you need to know what to start with. And so that's where you go back. I recommend 2 years, and there's different ways to do this. You definitely want to pull bank, credit card, Venmo, PayPal, all of those services. And then usually the one that's not captured in any of those is like what you spend on health insurance because it comes spread out of your check. So you kind of look across all those things, get them down on a spreadsheet. And you're going to, if you don't know if you're not good with spreadsheets, have your kid or your parent or some friend do it. And then you need to categorize. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Step 2 of the KonMari method, sort them into like items, right? So I can remember my other friend, she's like, we're taking care of shoes this weekend, right? So I'm like, wow, do you have that many shoes to take care of? She's like, yeah, you wouldn't believe it. That's right, sort. So the second method of the no budget budget is categorize your spending. So, and there's like, 10 or 12 categories. I have some that I use in the book, but it's household, food, all the traditional stuff. There's nothing unique there, but you need to know kind of the big categories of things. Yeah. I didn't have enough shoes to do a shoes pass on my KonMari method.
I can't say the same.
Oh, no, here. Okay. Number 3, you can't say the same. Well, that's funny. Well, maybe you don't want to approach that one first, right? You want to approach that one later.
Yeah.
The next step is tackle one item category at a time. So what would your first item category be in the KonMari method, would you say, if you had to do it again?
Oh, I definitely would have started with my clothes first.
Yeah.
I don't know, I kind of felt really attached to them. And then actually not until recently I redid the method. And it's funny actually when you said like sort them and roll them up. Maybe I skipped that step and it didn't stick because I fold them and put my shirts like that way already. So they instead of being
you
so I was
do.
like, yeah, and
Okay.
color code. My closet's ridiculous.
So you kind of maybe were a co-author for that part of that chapter.
Yeah.
All right. So how does this apply to the no budget budget? Since we're going to pick one category at a time, this is, again, the beauty of it. We're not going to do 100 things to fix our spending. We're going to look at the biggest priority one first, right? And again, we're a product of all the things we've learned over the course of our lifetime. And I can't remember the first time I heard this, but they were like, think about the biggest expense. So here's a good example. And I did this through the no budget budget. Mortgage, right? Mortgage. And the question was, how do you take the biggest expense and figure out a way to either cut it or make money off of it? I was like, what? I'm like, well, my mortgage is my mortgage. It's as low of an interest rate as possible. What am I going to do there? And then I had the idea, we're in Wisconsin, 3 months out of the summer, we could Airbnb our house because people always want to come to the Bay Area. And we did that for 3 summers. And, we basically, I think thinking back, we probably made $12,000 to $15,000 each summer we were gone. Now, it's no longer worth that to us because the last summer people were particularly hard on the house. Like our house is not nice enough that it would make a huge difference, but it was teetering on the edge of like, oh God, we need to stop this. And so we did. But that's an example. Like I would have just normally just passed it off like, oh, my mortgage, whatever, it's done. But like you got to really focus on that highest valued category, right? And tackle like the top 3. Just ignore the lower ones, That's my recommendation on that. The other thing is, so you look at the biggest categories and then within all categories, look at the biggest expense. Right. So maybe you have category that's sixth down, but inside there's one huge expense because that's where you're going to
Mhm.
make your improvements. Not buying that extra case of dental floss is a very, very small way to make an improvement in your spending. But
Mhm.
if you can, here's one. We got on a bad habit during COVID of just doing Instacart. And I think our grocery bill, so then I started going to Trader Joe's and I swear I cut it in half.
Mhm.
In half. And like, it's not half of $5, it's like half of thousands of dollars. So it was a
Mhm.
huge impact. And I love Trader Joe's. You'll get to know that about me through the course of the book. um, but, great, great, wonderful, delicious stuff, half the price. I didn't even hardly notice it.
And I think the other piece to that too is, I mean, for us, like we don't have Instacart or anything, but we started doing grocery pickups for the same
Uh-huh.
reason because you get what's on your list, you don't go through and
And it's convenient. It's like a win-win. I think
you
that's
don't have to go in
awesome.
the store, and then also then you stick to more of a budget. And I would say honestly, every month alone, probably every trip alone, I save $100. That's a lot.
And it's easy, which we'll get to in just a second. So
Mhm.
step 4 in the KonMari method is remove anything that does not deliver joy. That's what you remembered. This one is
Yes.
in the no budget. It's cut spending that's unaligned with your values. So let me think of another one, something that was not aligned with my values. I also did a little bit of door dashing, until I looked and I was like, oh my God, DoorDash adds 50% to the
Mhm.
to the price of a thing. Like now we have a friend, I won't name him. It's a good friend. They DoorDash everything. But when they come to our house, I'm like walking downtown to go pick it up and bring it back. And I feel like it's just this principle thing now. Oh, here, I'll tell you a story. Theo DoorDashed McDonald's the other night at 10 o'clock at night because he had a gift card. I still don't know where that gift card came from. Guess how much you think his McDonald's order was? But
I
now that
would
I
say
set it up,
I
yeah,
know, I was gonna say, like, at least $30.
28. You got it.
Yeah.
$8. I'm like, it's the principle of the matter. Anyway, actually, it's not my value. Maybe it's his value.
I was gonna say, I have a story about that too, because I'm very particular on my pens. Like, I really want to write with the
I did
erasable
not know that
pens.
about you.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, and it's a running joke in our house, and I will buy a pack of pens, and I'm like, "Don't touch my pens."
Love
And
it.
the kids, of course, take my pens, and I'm like, "Lose it." So, I was at training, and I don't usually get a rental car when I'm there because either I'm close to somebody who can pick me up or I walk or Uber, whatever, because I don't wanna drive in Long Beach
In
or
LA. Oh,
any of
yeah.
that surrounding area. And so I door dashed pens. And during training, it was $20 for a $3 pack of pens. And I was like, "I don't care. Like, I have to have my pens."
I
The
don't
lady
know
was
how
like,
people afford to pay that.
"No, I don't know either." Like, consistently, the trainer was like, "Well, if you needed a pen, you could just have asked." I was like, "No, I'm very particular about my pens. Otherwise, I would have just
See,
asked."
so maybe it was worth it to you in that case.
In that moment, yes, but normally, no.
Okay, so the last step of the process is a very important one, and so it pays to spend some time on it. But the last step of the KonMari method is to maintain order. Now, boy,
Mhm,
that's the hard part, right? Like once
mhm.
you've filtered it out, got rid of the non-joyous things, joyful, whatever, joyous, joyful.
Joyous.
Claire would know.
I like
Um,
joyous.
that you need to maintain order, and that's the hardest because I don't remember from the book what the strategies were, but
Mhm,
for the no budget, because it's so hard, there are definitely strategies here. And so the fifth step of the no budget is maintain order through spending rules, not limits. So tapping into our behavioral selves and how humans
mhm,
operate and build habits and all of these sorts of things. The key is not to establish limits. In other words, don't budget. That's where the name comes from. The no budget is I am not going to set a budget limit. Instead, I'm going to put in place a spending rule. This
mhm.
is my favorite spending rule. Okay. Go grocery shopping on a Tuesday afternoon after eating a full lunch,
Ooh.
right? So nobody's there because I've noticed if you go shop, because, we live flexible lives because we're entrepreneurs, you
Mhm,
could shop at any time. If I go at 10, all the moms with the babies are still in there. If you're at noon, all the kids are in there from lunch at school. But if you go like at 1 to 2 before school's out, nobody's there. And if you've had a full lunch, this is a terrible thing for me, is like I do not shop hungry because I'll end up with twice the amount of stuff. So that rule
Mm-hmm.
itself has saved me thousands of dollars. But that's the rule I get. The other one is I only ever get gas. I don't want to check the gas prices every single day.
Mm-hmm.
That's a budget kind of method. I looked it up once and I found that there's one gas station on the north end of town and one on the south end of the town that are traditionally the lowest price. I just go there. Like, never just get the gas down so far that you have to pull off the highway and do it. I mean, if you're on a trip, that's another scenario. But if in town, I only go to those two gas stations. And I think I only do debit because it's one of those where it's cheaper if you do debit. But that rule, again, I don't have to think about it anymore. I've established that rule and that's it. I don't know if it's kind of a weird thing, but do you have like spending, never DoorDash?
Yeah,
That's another rule I
never
have.
DoorDash. Ours are very similar, actually. In our area, do you guys have Sinclair stations? I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the ones
Okay.
that's the cheapest on the north end of town.
Okay, so if you have the Dino Pay app, actually, and you have it connected to your account,
Really?
there's two different discounts. So there's one, if it's connected to your debit card, I think is 5 cents. If it's an ACH, it's 10 cents. Sometimes they run specials and it's even more.
Wow.
So we only use Sinclair, and then also 7-Eleven has the same thing. Actually, if you have you scan the app or put your phone number in, whatever, I would say 90% of the time we get 11 cents off our gas.
Wow.
So those two are pretty much the only places we get gas, unless we're by Costco. Obviously, Costco's always the cheapest. But
It's also
then,
got the longest lines, probably.
yeah, well, we go during the week, usually, like on a
Good.
Monday, because we go after we go to the dentist. So yeah, the other thing I do is the grocery pickups, and I
Smart.
always schedule it around nap time,
Mm-hmm.
so I can drive, go get the groceries. The kids will nap in the car, and then when we get home, and then I don't have to buy lunch. So
That is a behavioral rule to follow. That's
yes,
awesome. Yep.
yeah.
So what you have when you go through your no budget and you find those high ones, right? You put them in you move it to another sheet and you have your 10 high things and you're like, okay, is this moving me toward or away from my goals in life? And if it's moving you away, then those are the ones you want to cut. And based on the ones you want to cut, you're like, how do I cut them? That's when you implement these rules. So, again, I'm not going for perfection here. We're going for the highest priority ones, and then we're going for some sort of behavioral change that you can make to make it easy, because the only way that you're going to maintain something is if it's easy to do. And then the last question is, I'm curious on what you think about this, is people will sometimes ask, so how often do you need to do the no budget? And go ahead.
So I would say, like, for me, when I first started, we were doing it quarterly. And because really, once you have it up, and even, I mean, if you, depending on your financial situation, obviously, like you could do it even once a month. Once you have the biggest bulk of your time is getting that first one done, and then it's easy to maintain, in my opinion. And it's no different than what I do with my schedule every single week. So it's, I reflect on what it was and then how can I improve going forward for the next week. And then as you get consistent, then you can go longer times because you already have that consistency there. So for us, we had pretty like set things. And we noticed, even in the first quarter. And so then we kind of looked back and was like, okay, what is it now? And that seems for us, lifestyle wise, is, kind of a change of the seasons, depends on what we're doing. And so, like, summertime's crazy. So you have your summer budget kind of with the kids. And then obviously your grocery bills are much higher in the summer because during the school year, they're at school. And so just those things. So we started quarterly, and then I don't know. I think that that's a good time. I think if you're really consistent after a while, you can, and you don't notice any changes, then you could push it further.
Yeah. And my thinking is, again, you want it to be as easy as possible. And so I recommend doing one, because I've noticed so many times if I ask people, like, what do you spend? They give me a number and then they do the budget and they were completely off, because sometimes people and it's not, nobody's at fault. Like, sometimes you don't know. And so do one, right? Because it's going to be extremely informative and you can make some really good progress. But then after that, my advice is do it when you need to. And there are different scenarios there. One is maybe when you don't. Like, let's say you're in a wonderful position in your time freedom formula, your investment income and your flexible work on the right side of the equation are doing so great that they more than cover your lifestyle expenses, well, guess what? Enjoy the luxury. It's not that important. Like, you're going to be successful without even having to cut back, right? Or change. So you don't have to. But sometimes you need to. And sometimes you just need to because you're trying to save up $50,000 because you want to start a business. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to kind of cut back for 3 months, and we're going to, control our spending and see if we can make a good dent in that. And so do one, live your life that way for 3 months, and then kind of, you can like let it relax again a little bit. So it's again, completely up to you. I think when you'll feel when you're like, boy, I feel like this is you look at that credit card bill and you're like, ooh, that's a sign you need to do another round of no budget. And once you've done it once, the next time is much quicker.
And I think you mentioned something really smart about like when you're trying to save for a specific thing. It kind of depends on what your goals are in that moment. And so for us too, it's how can we maximize savings and then also start investing a little bit more, and pay off some debt or whatever. So I think, you're right though. You do feel it. Like you kind of know.
You just know. Yeah.
Like,
without having to track. You don't need the
Yeah.
spreadsheet to say, oh boy, I was 1,000 over on that. You just know.
Right. Exactly.
You actually mentioned a
And
good one,
so-
which is if you have to pay down debt. Like, I don't think we've ever spoken specifically about this, but in the early readership of my book, there was a lot of feedback, great feedback, which is like, I have student debt, or I have some other sort of debt that I'm in no fault of my own even. And it's hard for me to think about this lifestyle of time freedom while I have that hanging over my head. And I get it. Like that, like the first touch of freedom you're going to feel is when you pay that debt down. So my suggestion is always to focus on paying that debt down first. And there's no better, there's a lot of ways you can do it. But one of the biggest one is control your expenses. So the no budget for somebody that's trying to pay down debt is a huge one. But then there's other things too you can do around the debt is, ask for a raise at work. Various other things on both the expense cutting and income raising side of the world. But then once you pay that down, some people would say, don't let off the brakes, keep those expenses down and start saving. Yes and no. I mean, enjoy the freedom a little bit and relax it a little bit. Like don't go back maybe to extreme spending that's out of control or anything like that, but you don't have to be as strict. So it's like, I think that will help you do it too. If you know that we're going to be strict for 6 months and it's going to help free up. But the larger point is, even if you have some debt, you still deserve time freedom. You just have one extra step you have to take care of first. And let's get that out of the way because you're going to feel awesome and then it's going to accelerate you into time freedom.
Yes. I love that.
That might be a good way to end.
That's what I was going to say. I think that's a perfect space to end. And then next week we actually talk about investing. So I mean, that segues right into it.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you. Leave us a review. It's so helpful, especially if you listen on Spotify, and also subscribe and give us some thumbs up on YouTube as well. We are so glad you're coming along on the ride with us, and we can't wait